this is Alex for the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. For more videos like this, be sure to hit like and subscribe. And find our weekly Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.
Alrighty, so looking at it, we've been breaking down teams as we go. And next up on the docket is the organization out of Washington, the Washington Redskins. They've made some news in this last week with a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, and a new defensive coordinator. The Redskins finished at 3-13. I didn't mess that one up today, Alex. I made sure to look at that just for you. So anyway, 3-13. They've got some talent on here. And
first off, before we get going here, I'd like to say happy Thanksgiving. And then we can get into our breakdown of the Redskins. Really? Nothing? That doesn't get a laugh? The owner said a happy Thanksgiving when he hired and introduced Ron Rivera 3 days after the New Year? Nothing? Okay. Go ahead.
And that kind of brings me to Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is a guy that I kind of put in the same breath as slightly better than Will Fuller, only because Will Fuller gets hurt so much. I don't know that he is built to be a true number one receiver in the NFL, but I do think that he provides a lot of pop. I think if you're doing any best ball leagues, Terry McLaurin is a guy that I absolutely want to go after in a best ball league to try and get that high ceiling, couple weeks that he has, and then I don't have to worry about some of the duds that he's going to put up inevitably because it's Washington. The biggest problem with any Redskin in my mind is there's zero to very, very little consistency across the board, and unless you're taking flyers, I tend to stay away from that unless I'm going for something like that. McLaurin is draft range for myself. They said they had him 16th overall, Derek, in the rankings that you were listing.
16th wide receiver, 36 overall.
36 overall. So you're talking the very end of round 3, very beginning of round 4 type range, right? Window for Terry McLaurin. For me personally, that's probably about 2 rounds too early. I don't think I'd be looking at him till closer to the end of the 5th, beginning of the 6th, somewhere in that area. I think I could find better value elsewhere.
So let me pose you a couple here. Terry McLaurin or Juju Smith-Schuster?
Juju.
From this year?
No,
for
going
next
in
year.
2020.
For next year.
Juju.
Yeah, probably Juju.
Big bounce back, baby.
But here's the other thing, though, that we need to take into account as we go into this is it's Terry McLaurin coming off of his rookie year, right?
Yes.
His rookie year. He's almost 1,000-yard receiver. And granted, if he could have played the Philadelphia Eagles 16 times, dude would have had like 4,000 yards receiving. Yeah, 130 yards against the Eagles in week 2 and then 125 against them final game of the season. Week 1 and then second to last game of the season, 130 yards. But he is inconsistent. But I think that a lot of that had to do with the inconsistencies at the quarterback position. I think Ron Rivera will bring in some stability to that quarterback position. I think he can work with a guy like a Dwayne Haskins because he's proven that he can work with a quarterback with a similar skill set in Carolina. I think there will be some people that will be high on fantasy players from Washington this year, only because Riverboat Ron's going to be running that ship. But I would be hesitant as well, Kevin, to really. I mean, they would be like, you would really have to be scraping, I think, for me in order to be drafting guys.
Yeah, it's the volume, right? Only twice this season did he go over 5 catches.
Yep.
Only twice. He averaged, rough math. He averaged 4 catches a game.
Yeah.
I when I'm looking at a wide receiver 2, I want more value than that. I am not willing to sacrifice a wide receiver 2 spot in our league or any other league that I'm doing it off a guy who only gets the ball in his hands 4 to 5 times a game. That's just my opinion, and that's why I slide him down. Now, obviously, you assume he's going to get better, right? Going from his rookie year to year 2, he's learning how to be a pro. He gets a full off season and, all that stuff to help him develop. But it's also he's now learning a new playbook for the second year in a row. A new coaching staff. They're going to ask him to do all sorts of different things, possibly, than what he had been doing. So there's a lot of variables in there that I'm not comfortable with that. If he had 7 or 8 catches, closer to 7 or 8, averaging 6.5 a game or something like that, as opposed to 4, maybe I'd buy it off at a wide receiver too. But at the moment, he would bye week fill in for me.
Mm. He was clutch for me down the stretch. I will say that.
Yeah. So Terry McLaurin or Devontae Parker?
I'm gonna take Parker. As
Alex,
much as I trashed him like the 4th week of the season, I would take Parker.
Yeah, I would go more with Parker too, just because of what Kevin just said, volume, because he's got more chance at getting you points. I think that's
okay.
I think that's the better way to go.
McLaurin or Deebo Samuel?
Ooh, I like this one. I like this one a lot. I think a lot of that would depend on how my roster would look, and that's kind of a cop out. But let me work through this real quick. If I'm sitting in a position where I'm really comfortable with my wide receiver 1, and maybe I did something different in the draft, right? Maybe I went running back, wide receiver, quarterback, for instance, in the first 3 rounds. I don't love the value at running back in round 4 for whatever reason. That puts us there in their draft position, and holy crap, I think I'd punt on both of them. I'm going to say Deebo. I trust Kyle Shanahan and what they're building in San Francisco a little bit more than the unknown of Washington. So I'll say Deebo.
I would have to go with, oh boy, yeah, Deebo looks a little bit more enticing, but when you really break it down, Deebo's best games fantasy wise this last year in our league, his best games both came against Seattle and a huge game against Arizona. He had 8 catches for 112 yards. Week 10 against Seattle, 8 catches again week 11. But then it kind of fell off. And I know that I think he got most of those. Was that when Kittle was out? Like that's when, because Kittle is going to take away from a receiver there. Emmanuel Sanders got hurt right around that time too, if I'm not mistaken. So Deebo Samuel's position in the offense got a little bit more highlighted. I think I'd go McLaurin if it gun to my head, those 2 guys. I'd go McLaurin over Deebo.
Okay, one more for another guy entering his 2nd season, McLaurin or Darius Slayton?
Crickets.
I
kind of have a soft spot for. I kind of have a soft spot for Darius Slayton. I don't know that. I think McLaurin's the better raw talent. I think McLaurin has more upside than Slayton, in a holistic view. So I think I'd probably lean Terry McLaurin in that aspect, but I do have a soft spot for Darius Slayton. I like the guy.
I do too, because I had both of them starting for me, I think, towards the end of the year. They're the reason why I have the number 1 overall pick. Both of those guys were tearing it up.
They won me the losers bracket
in the late rounds, in the late weeks. Again, receivers is so frustrating because they're only, again, like a head coach, they're only as good as the quarterback throwing it to them. And if you've got a quarterback that isn't willing to extend plays and allow these guys to have routes that are going to be effective, or an O-line that can't block for somebody and you're just having to go quick game. I think, man, again, boy, the Eagles defense was so bad. They gave up so many big receiving performances to people. It's ridiculous. But I don't know. I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other when it comes to Slayton and McLaurin. Honestly, I do. I think you could go either way and you're going to get basically about the same thing.
Okay. Very good. So, Kevin, you've got him going in that 5th to 6th round. I think that he's going to not last past the 4th in the majority of leagues. Alex, where do you got him going in the draft?
No, I think his stock is high because his lasting impression was good. So I think people are going to look at that, and that's going to improve his draft stock. Now, I think that Kevin's got a point, and that smart people are going to hold off on him and wait on McLaurin because there's better options out there for what he needs to be. But I do think that people are going to envision him as a wide receiver 2 or as a wide receiver 1 potentially, which could be dangerous for you. But I think that they're going to have that in their minds when they're drafting. Recency bias. That's what I'm getting at. There's going to be a ton of recency bias when it comes to McLaurin.
Yeah. Well, and you think of it, there are scenarios where McLaurin could be a wide receiver 1 on some rosters. And not that, again, I'm not advocating that, but if you're sitting at the turn, you're picking in a redraft league and you're sitting at the turn and you go running back receiver or running back or however that, or I guess it would be running back or running back quarterback at the 1-2 turn. By the time you get to that 3-4 turn, that's back down to you. It is possible. I mean, especially for these guys who are just hunting, pecking based off rankings and they're not doing their own research and kind of what their own thoughts behind that are. You could end up with Terry McLaurin as your number 1 receiver, along with, Evan Ingram. I mean, that could be your 3-4 turn.
And honestly, I think you could end up with a McLaurin Slayton type situation if you really needed to. If you needed to load up on those receivers, I don't think you're going to go wrong if you do that. Certainly worked for me, so I think that was an okay thing to do.
All right,
but it's funny that you say that. Before we move on for this, it's funny that you say that there is a situation where Terry McLaurin could be your wide receiver 1. He was for me because Adam Thielen and Juju Smith-Schuster did jack shit for me the last 10 weeks of the season. So Terry McLaurin and Darius Slayton, 2 dudes that were wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 for me.
All right, so give me a round that he gets drafted in.
I say 4th round. I think he's a 4th round. I think that's where he's going to be valued. Okay. Wrongfully valued, but I think that's where he'll be valued.
Yes, no answer. Do you believe for the 2020 season he'll be a top 24 wide receiver?
McLaurin?
Yes.
Yes. With the caveat, I need to know who's playing quarterback there. I really need to know who's playing quarterback.
I must say no.
All right. Alrighty, guys, that'll do it for the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. That'll wrap up another episode. Thank you for joining us. Make sure that you are following us on the Twitter at Good Old Boys FF. You can also find us on YouTube with the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football channel. Facebook, we are at Good Old Boys FF. If you haven't done so, be sure to click the like and subscribe button. We'd also love for you to hit the rating and subscribe button to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Now, for Kevin and Alex, I'm Derek.